Our universe is filled with secrets and mysteries.
What?
Many questions to be answered. We find ourselves searching for those answers at the very fabric of science and society. And for the very first time, these worlds collide.
On my mark. Here we go.
This Knowledge Talk.
Topics that contribute knowledge to the society. News, interviews with guests.
The show that said it all with your host, Tariq Al-Barwani. Tuesdays at 5 p.m. Face it and talk it through on Knowledge Talk.
Check it out.
Every week here on the Nation Station Radio, Sultan of Oman, 90.4 FM.
Assalamu alaikum, good afternoon, and welcome to Knowledge Talks. A weekly edutainment and knowledge sharing program aired live specifically to share with you topics that contribute knowledge to the society. Every week, Knowledge Talks hosts and invites guests that are experts, professionals, and leaders from the field that bring wealth of knowledge to you. This program, ladies and gentlemen, is a weekly session that I will have with you every Tuesday at 5 p.m. I'm your host, Farah Al-Barwani, along with our studio engineer, DJ Sophia, for an hour, bringing you knowledge at your doorsteps on Oman Radio FM 90.4. Okay, stay tuned after this music break for today's interesting knowledge topic and today's interesting personality. Welcome back to Knowledge Talks, ladies and gentlemen. I'm your host, Tariq Al-Barwani, along with our studio engineer, DJ Sophia, with you here live today on Oman Radio FM 90.4. Now, what would it take to write a winning poetry and stories and also publish them as a book? Well, my guest today, ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Mazin Habib, also known as Mazin Habib, a poet and a storyteller, has been in the writing since the age of 14 years old and has received numerous recognition for his work locally and regionally. Mazin, a great man, a great personality, has published his work in magazines and newspapers and participated in local and also Arab contests as well, gaining him wins of several prizes. Mazin as well, some of his work has been translated to English and studied as part of a PhD and master's program as well. In addition, one of his work, Captain Hamdan, the story, has been adapted as a radio play today. 3 of his top books, namely The Oman ID Card, Short Stories 2014, won the Creativity Award Short Story Collection for the year 2015. Another of his interesting books is the Beyond the Territory of Pain in 2009 and ebook Memoir. Last but not least is the Memory Almost Full Short Stories 2006. What does it take to become a poet? Write a poetry. Share your stories in a form of a book and become an award winner. Well, today, my great friend Mazin, who is my guest, will share with them all to you today as a form of knowledge. Sheikh Mazin, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. How are you doing today, Mazin?
Wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. I'm doing really fine. Thank you for this generous introduction. I am glad to be here.
Well, the pleasure is not only mine, but to all the listeners, Mazin. You know, Mazin, what? Let me tell you one thing.
Yeah.
Whenever I see you at the mall, whenever I see you the places you work, and whenever I see you around, you're always a smiley person, always happy. Even at the elevators, you know, I see this guy is always smiling. He's always nice. I mean, he's always positive. Yani, this is a very, very good thing. And then later I came to learn you are actually an award winner storyteller, and someone who has published your own stories here in Oman, and also have won regional awards as well. That is very, very good. Now I understand why you're always smiling and happy, Mazin.
Well, thanks. I mean, if I'm smiling, that's a good reflection of what goes inside. I mean, sometimes they say what goes in the inside actually reflects to the outside.
Sahih.
So if you see me smiling, then maybe I'm having a good day.
No, mashallah, you are, because I'm telling you, you are. And the good thing is that today we have you in our program, not only to have the smiles to the people who have surrounded you, like myself. I was very happy to see you. I want the smiles to be everywhere, so anyone who listens to the program, for them to be smile and happy. And tomorrow we have a lot of Mazin Habibs in Oman.
It will be my pleasure, actually, if I say anything that will inspire anybody in this place or any other place, that will encourage them to do whatever it takes to, to carry on their journey.
Yes. Mazin, I know about you. Could you briefly share with us your background, history, and achievements?
Well, I think I'll start just of how I started with writing. It basically starts with appreciating the poetry of other poets. This is the whole story of all writers, basically, here in Oman especially. We read poetry, we get inspired by them, we like certain themes, and then we carry the pen and then we start to write about our own writings. This is how it all starts. Now, the idea is that how good of that writing comes, then it becomes something that you do. You share that writing with your colleagues, with your family members, with your teachers. They actually give you some sort of a feedback of how much of a good writing that is. So it started there, at that, as you mentioned, at the very age of 14 or 13 years old.
You're in school during these days?
Yeah, that was what they used to call it. After elementary school, they used to have that system, elementary school, and
Yes.
yeah. Then, I mean, the most inspiring moment there, it was with the teachers, basically. The teachers of Arabic language, they used to, encourage us to write and to reflect on the material that we were studying. That where the spark started.
Okay. Was it from a specific teacher or
In
specific
general.
subject that has inspired you to start writing poetry?
No, it was just a personal appreciation of poetry. During that time, it's really something that touches you. And then when it touches you, then it is something that you have to follow it. I wanted then it did not really continue there. It started a poetry, but it actually evolved to something else.
Mm-hmm.
We have a say here in Oman that under each stone there is a poet, meaning that there are so many poets or poet wannabes
Okay.
that wanted to continue the journey. However, I really found myself not really in poetry. I found myself in short story writing.
Okay.
But that didn't come by itself. It came actually that some of my poetry was telling some sort of story, some sort of narrative.
Mm-hmm.
So it is moving from one genre to another genre, from poetry to short stories.
Okay.
Then I
Is there
went.
some kind of a relation from poetry to stories, or
I
completely not?
mean, during this, I mean, okay, you can. This is a very interesting question. Of course, there are separation of genres, separation of forms might not be strict, especially in stories and writing. They could be from the formal way. It might be different. The kind of literature you write, you have to be aware that are you writing a short story or are you writing poetry?
Okay.
At the face value, yes, they are separate, but there are elements of each art. It's evolved in the other one.
Mm-hmm.
So there are some combination between each one of them.
Okay.
let's move on to where I actually started to write my stories. I started writing my stories when I was in the US, when I moved from Oman to the US for my studies.
Okay, what were you studying?
I was studying computer science.
MashaAllah, okay.
Unlike my interest, my passion is in literature, but my educational career or my educational direction was in science.
Why is that?
Well, it's
Is where the money goes, or?
not specifically. There's
Career
one
maybe?
element of that, but I would think of it that we as humans have potential to grow in many directions.
True.
You could be a good writer, but doesn't mean that you have to be directed all your attention to one area.
Yeah.
That's what the scholars in the past, Arab scholars, Muslim scholars in the past, they used to be writers, poets, and maybe philosophers, and they have many other fields that are, might not see them related within the same field. They are basically, they go where they find their passion.
Yeah.
And that's how I found myself, that doing this and that,
Okay.
and enjoying this scientific bit of it, of the computer science, and the literary bit of short story telling and writing.
Did you take any course while you were in the States in literature writing, story writing? And
I was
poetry?
studying, I was also, okay, I studied Near Eastern Studies in general, and during that time, what we had, it's funny how it went, huh? You read literature in the Near Eastern Studies minor, you read literature in Arabic, but then you write them in English.
Okay.
Writing about them in English. So it's a mixture between things. It's not really you write in Arabic and you reflect in Arabic. No, you actually read in some language and you reflect in another language. And it is where your passion is, in addition to your major work in, let's say, computer science or other field.
Okay. Now, you write your poets and also your stories in Arabic.
Yeah.
Do you do them in English as well?
No, I have not.
You have not, but I think it should be easy. I mean, because you speak English.
Not necessarily. I mean, it's not about ease as much as it's about
Interest?
how you feel yourself connected with the material that you produce.
Okay.
I did some translations of other people's work
Yeah.
from English to Arabic.
Okay.
I enjoy doing that, poetry or short stories. But I did not find myself translating my own work to another language.
Okay.
Some other people translated my short stories to English to English. They found it something that's worth doing. But I always thought of my expression should be in the area where I feel that I'll be able to convey and express myself.
Okay. Okay. So if you were to tell me something that got you into to storytelling and story writing, is your passion in the subject itself? Yeah.
It's actually I think my personality, and the moment you start to reflect about things, the moment that you start to think about how relationship between people and a place, people and language, people and time, you start to ask questions, then I think you have that spark of need to explore more, and that makes you move in that direction of exploring more and more. And sometimes it's not about finding the answers to these questions, it's about the journey that leads you to further questions. So basically you enjoy the ride of writing and enjoy the ride of exploring these writings.
Okay. So from poetry all the way to storytelling, and now writing stories in a books. How many books have you published so far?
I have published 4 books so far. Yeah.
Okay. And what was the first book? Sorry.
It was in 2016. It was a short story book, Memory Almost Full.
Okay, that was your first book?
Yeah.
Okay, and then so now since then you started publishing a book
Other books,
after
yeah. It's
another.
always the first book that gets you that momentum, to carry on the next ones.
Okay, before that, what made you then go to start writing stories? I know the interest, but what made you say, I'll write my stories, publish them as a book?
See, I think before you go to publish a book, you don't really think that you want to publish a book. You want to write good literature. You want to write something that will impact people, that will affect people, that could have some sort of joy that which should have some. Actually, it's a painful process. Writing is I will be very honest with you. It's a very painful process.
Which I will be talking sometime.
Exactly, but it is. There are moments where you actually think, and when you see it in your readers, you see the reflection of it in your readers. Then there's the joy, when people talk about it and they say how they can relate to the stories that you are writing. The fiction, it's fiction. It's all about fiction, and how fiction can resembles reality and touches people's lives. Then you start to want to get more of that.
True.
You want to explore more areas of that, and then once you get that recognition, then you become more courageous to well, I have something to publish and to collect in a book and then publish. Then that's the moment where you decide, and then you have to sit with yourself before anybody else and say, okay, am I gonna go and do this, and this will be something valuable that people will keep in their shelves at home, or no, it's not the time. That's a very important decision, and not only you need to answer that, but also those who you will consult before going after that step. Before that step.
In fact, Mr. Mazin, how did I come to know you is through your books. And how did I get to appreciate that is through your writing and the stories that you create as well, which inshallah after the break right now we are going to look more into details. How do you go to the journey from writing the books and publishing? There's a process, definitely, so others could learn as well into it. Ladies and gentlemen, let's take a quick break and revert to our interesting discussion with Mazin Habib. Exciting discussion and interview with Mazin Habib. Mazin Habib is a poet and also a story teller and writer who has built a name for himself for already making books which have been recognized locally and regionally as well. Mazin, tell us what would it take and the process that it takes for someone to write a story up till to the stage of publishing a book for a story. What would it take? I would like to know the whole thing, end to end, from the thinking, the thought, the process, until you go and then putting the material, writing a book. Because even to do a book or publish a book, you do need some kind of approval from some authority or so on.
Yeah, let's start with writing the story, because that's the cornerstone of the book itself. I will assume that the person who is actually would like to write a story, he has not written any story before. So in this context, and this is all based on my just humble opinion, I don't claim that there is one way to do it. This is the way that I felt, or I feel that it could be helpful to others. I really think from that perspective. So in this context, I would think that a person should be able to, before writing, they should be reading. Reading gives you perspective about what kind of story that you would like to write, what kind of themes that you can or you want to explore. So when I say reading, I don't mean reading stories only. When you read, is actually it means that you're also watching films that you are appreciating. You are actually watching. You see the dialogue that goes on in your life. Simple things. These are all sources of reading, because where all of these stories come, they come from life. Yes, they are fictional stories, but they are originating from life situation where you then add on top of them. So that spark comes from life, and for you to get that spark, you need to get that momentum going on from that very place. So you start reading. Then when you read, you will start to recognize the kind of stories that you are attracted to. So then you probably want, not I say write but you would resemble in terms of the themes, the dialogue, the characters, the setting of your own stories. Now you read enough, you have the confidence that, and you have something to say. Then you start with a schedule. I would say try at least to be as systematic as possible. Sometimes it's not that easy. even myself, I am not always on a schedule. But once you start to have this writing as a habit to you, then it becomes part of you. It's becoming part of your routine. You have written something, you have the confidence that it is already good enough, then I would suggest to show it to somebody who is, you can trust. You don't go ahead and publish it right away, or you don't seek to publish it from the beginning, because that could have an adverse effect. I mean, nowadays you have all of these social medias that people, very actively participate in. But sometimes it is really hurting the person itself to start to publish everything all the way from the beginning.
Mm-hmm.
What I have noticed that also some ideas are already very good ideas as a starting for stories. They are published, but they are not well developed in the story. So try to tame that urge to publish in the social media. Have it read by somebody who is expert in the field, who can give you a genuine advice about it. Now you have an accepted text. You have a story now.
Yeah.
I would think start to get involved in contest, not to win the prize necessarily, but this is one way, is actually to see yourself with your colleagues, to see yourself with your with the writers of your generation, to see the experiences of others, the writing of others. Now you go there, you mingle. There are so many platforms nowadays that you can participate in. There are many organizations that either locally or regionally that can organize a contest. You start with that one. You start winning, you start getting recognized, then start to publish them formally in a magazine, in a newspaper, in somewhere where it will stay.
Yeah.
I know now today people are more into online platforms, which is fine by itself, but start to get recognized in the traditional way, I would say.
Okay.
Now, then you establish your name, you establish your writing, you have a good number of stories that you can collect, either with a theme, one general theme for the collection, short story collection that is, or it doesn't have to be a theme at this point. It's a good number of stories that can be representing your pen, your writing. Now then you go ahead and approach publishers.
Okay.
Publishing is not a joke at all. Huh? You don't think you go there and just will find a good publisher. The thing about publishing is that you may not have the support that you need. So you might have to publish it on your own and do not expect any returns from the beginning, especially financial, if you are seeking financial returns. Or you participate in some sort of a contest again, that actually by winning that one you get published.
Yeah,
so then in that way you can actually get the credit with other So these are some of the ideas that I would put forward for somebody who wants to
start into this area
to then getting published.
Publish it. Very interesting information, ladies and gentlemen, from Mazin Habib himself on how to publish, how to write your stories and then get them to the level of publishing. We're going to take a quick break, ladies and gentlemen, and revert back to our interesting discussion with Mazin Habib.
Our universe is filled with secrets and mysteries.
What?
Many questions to be answered. We find ourselves searching for those answers at the very fabric of science and society. And for the very first time, these worlds collide.
On my mark. Here we go.
This is Knowledge Talk.
Topics that contribute knowledge to the society. News, interviews with guests.
The show that said it all with your host, Tariq Al-Barwani, Tuesdays at 5 p.m. Face it and talk it through on Knowledge Talk.
Check it out.
Every week here on the Nation Station Radio, Sultan of Oman, 90.4 FM.
Mazin, could you kindly share with us some of those interesting books that you've published, the stories, the summary of the stories, and what was the motive behind publishing the stories?
Yeah, let's. Okay, my first book is Memory is Almost Full, and I'll talk about the theme of the book more, rather than one particular story, because the book does have multiple stories, but the theme, the general theme, is about memory and what we think of memory and how we feel about memory, and it actually goes beyond the traditional way of memory of just remembering things. It's what memory is consisted of. Is it what we remember or what we think we are remembering? So it goes with these kind of questions. The second book of short stories is Omani ID Card.
Mm-hmm.
It's basically, as the title suggests, it discusses the question of identity. Identity being an Omani card that you hold in your hand, or who you are, and again, what you think you are. Are you reflecting what your outer identity, or are you representing as a person some other identity that you might yourself not seeing in your normal circumstances? These kind of questions that goes beyond the face value of who we are and what we think we are. These, during certain circumstances, they actually show us in other means or other ways. It doesn't mean good or bad. It's just different ways of representing ourselves. So these are the kind of questions I try to raise in my stories, especially the last collection. The second part of the question was what motivates me.
Yeah.
It's, I mean, it's as we discussed earlier, it's just a need that I think I need to fulfill. A need that I cannot go without. Meaning, if I don't write it, I feel that something is missing in my life.
Okay.
And it's not necessarily that I will find the answer to it by writing. And I don't suggest or claim that I will be providing an answer to it. It's more of going again to these questions and entertaining them and having them spelled out loud, not only for myself but for the others, for the audiences, for the readers, that actually then can probably also ask these questions, or who are actually asking these questions, and then we keep exploring more and more these kind of ideas. So questions might not have an answer, by the way, or have multiple answers, but it's really pivotal that we keep asking these questions, and by keeping asking these questions, it really triggers this need for fulfillment and nurturing our soul, basically. That's how I see it.
Okay. And now, if I were to get the books, how can I get the book? How can people get the books that you've written?
The books, I mean, see, the distribution of books in general is a really big issue here. I mean, in the Arab world in general, you don't find all the books wherever you would think they will be available. So most likely you will find the books only in the exhibitions, the international exhibitions, where, you know, all the publishers and distributors are gathered each year, and then it's like 5 or 10 days. We don't in our current bookshops, they are not really bookshops, they are more of stationary places. This is a big issue, bigger than anybody can imagine, and I think everybody acknowledges this thing. During exhibitions, this is the most place where, you know, most time that people can get books. It's becoming the annual event where
all the books
are. Yeah.
What about places like Amazon or anything? Have you thought of it? Like,
I mean, yeah, but it's beyond myself. It's a publisher thing. The publisher has to be available in these platforms before my book becomes there available.
Okay, so it depends on the publisher. So the publishers who have published your books are not in Amazon.
Yeah.
Okay.
If it isn't available, I mean, there is now a big wave of digitization of print and press. It's all going digital.
Yeah.
I mean, we are still beyond that. I mean, we are still not prepared for that. But I think we collectively, writers, readers, if we demand this kind of ease of use that we would like to have this medium. There are books that are available in these platforms, but this does not represent the majority of the books available in print or in paper.
What about turning them into electronic format?
Actually, I did something. I was so upset about books not being available. I did my third book in ebook format only.
Oh, very good, very good.
It was just an ebook. It was not. You will never find it published.
As a print book.
Yeah. So then it was just available as an ebook, and people just got it in an electronic format.
Okay, that's very good. Then how do you market your book then?
Well, now, as a writer, you mean?
Yeah.
As a writer now, it's easier than before. If you decide to go with an electronic book, then you go to these social networks, and then you start from there, and then it propagates to other platforms.
Very true.
And you will, however, you will find difficult time getting your book across if you are not very well known as a writer. If you are a new writer, it might not be an easy ride for you to get your book across.
Okay.
I want just to say something about this at the beginning. For anyone who wants to start writing, he should not have high ambitions about, to be famous or to be popular.
Yeah.
Just if we focus on the value of the work we write, then that will happen later. That will happen later. It's just the quality.
Do a good work first, and then get the work will be known by itself, inshallah.
Yeah.
What are the challenges that you faced, and you also think that book writer and story writers face as their writers?
I think it's funny that you can face many challenges, but I think one of the challenges that I faced most is writer's block. Writer's block is a state or condition where you think that you are unable to continue writing, or you are struggling to write. Actually, even if you are, a recognized writer, you can reach to that stage. It just writing does not occur to you. You spend days, the days become weeks, the weeks could become months, and then it goes on. So that's one of the known conditions in writing is basically you get a writer's block. You get blocked. Actually, you don't get that inspiration. It's not that you don't have the ideas. You have the ideas, but it is not. You don't build them into a structure. You don't build them into narrative. This is one of the challenges. And I think that one was the most challenge. Yeah, one of the prevailing challenges that I have
encountered.
faced.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. Do you have any family roots in this area? I mean, I'm talking about brothers, sisters, father. Someone who is into story writing or so.
I mean, as a family, yes, we do have interest in literature in general. And we have interest in reading as well. So that comes also that's a contributing factor in this case. If you have a nurturing family where actually it appreciates this kind of direction, it definitely helps. And it from a generation to a generation, it really helps. But that's not a must, I would say. You could have your own interest aside of your relatives and family.
Okay, you mentioned read and you said the importance of reading a lot in order for you to be able to write. Now, when you meant read, did you mean general reading, or you mean reading specific about the topics that you are trying to explore?
Inspiration can be found in any format. It might not really have to, or it's not necessarily coming from a specific area. But to be more logical here, it's actually you should be also reading about stories as well. You're writing stories, and then you should be reading about stories. But that does not restrict you from reading from other places, from other branches of knowledge or branches of life. So be specific in your in reading, but also you can be as generic as you are getting some inspiration or ideas from other topics.
Okay.
You will find yourself, as you grow, you will find yourself what kind of readings that will be attracting you, even if it is not related to each other, but you will get inspiration from it.
Okay. What do you think are the skills that is required for one to write a storybook?
Persistence. Really, you have to be persistent about your work and your goal to actually achieve this. So patience, which is very similar, it's really, to my experience, it's an evolving process, and should not be taken lightly.
Okay, so that's a very good feedback. Now tell me one thing: how do you keep yourself motivated, Mazin?
Well,
By watching movies, reading stories?
but you answered the question. I mean, that's just part of it. That's part of it. You keep reading and you keep imagining situations, and reading actually the situations that happens in front of you.
Yeah.
So, for example, then see, for a short story writer, I think one of the most important questions is what if. What if question is, you start to put that what if question, then you get up, you find out a story that you will be writing.
Yeah.
What if this happens? When you start there, that becomes your idea generation moment.
Okay. What is the cost of writing a book, by the way? Could you tell me what is the cost involved, apart from your effort itself? What is the costs associated with someone to write one?
Oh, time.
So time. That is it. Time is money.
Time. Not only money, time, effort, and probably your health.
Seriously?
Yes. Because, see, I don't mean health in a negative way, but I mean you are really putting lots of hours, lots of passion there, lots of effort. See, the thing with creative writing, it's not that occurs naturally.
Okay.
Maybe it is natural to some people, but it's not necessarily. It's not necessarily. You cannot take it for granted that it will. You just sit with the paper and then you create. You put words together. Many people say that doesn't happen to them, even if they dedicate time.
Okay.
It's a really some sort of a magical recipe that I wouldn't think that I am able to express what it is, but it's really different elements going together to create that creativeness.
Okay.
Sometimes you sit for so many hours, but you cannot even write a sentence. How do you explain of that? Even if I'm not even talking about myself, I'm talking about renowned writers.
Okay. Now, does an environment that you are at plays a role?
It does. It does, of course. I mean, it helps if you are in a quiet environment. It helps if you are not distracted. It helps if you don't have a busy work schedule, and you know what that means. It helps. But again, there are people who actually did it with all of these disturbing elements.
Okay.
So
they must have had a very strong, focused system in place.
Yeah, they have that, and they have this enlightenment that they, that it works for them.
They're persistent. I just want to do it, and I'll get it done.
Yeah, and with that light, let's say, they have all the energy and focus to get through it, and they create something really enriching to people.
Okay. Many of the people that I found who are successful, even if the ones who are trying to get successful, have role models. Who is your role model?
You are starting making me think about things that... see, role models, I mean... I have different role models in different situations in life. Now... I really would think that in persistence and patience, my father is a role model for me.
MashaAllah.
I really would like to give my father respect here for being who he is, and also for being able to nurture the family that he has been nurturing.
And a great man like you. Please pass on my regards to your father.
Sure, I will.
Yeah. So do you have also any other role models?
I will leave it there. I will leave it there.
So the one and only your dad, mashallah.
Yes. I don't think I can. I mean, as much as I have some respectful figures, but I don't think I would be in a position where I will share that at this moment with anybody
MashaAllah.
else.
MashaAllah. Please pass on my regards.
Sure.
May Allah bless him as well. Now, anything you wish to share before the end of our program today?
Well, I mean, I'm really thankful to be here. I really appreciate the opportunity to speak with you, and I hope that something of what I have said could again inspire people or provide some hint or help or whatever it is. I think if we are able to do that one by one in all of our capacities that we have, I think we will be doing some of our parts on this planet. So I really enjoyed being here, and I wish yani, to see myself and see you also in situations where we all yani, doing well, even better.
Inshallah. Mazin, to be honest, you have inspired me from your books. Not only from your books, as I said, whenever I have seen you around, whenever I hear about you, whenever I touch your book as well, I can feel a very, very pleasant feeling, because you're a great man, great personality, always smiling and always wishing great for people. And may Allah, inshallah ta'ala, open for you all the door of success for dunya al-akhirah, ya Rabbil Alameen.
Thank you.
I would like to take this opportunity to wish you the very best and success in all that you do.
Thank you. Shukran jazilan.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, we've come to the end of our program for this week. I hope you all had an intriguing time with us. Let us catch up again next week on Tuesday, same time at 5 p.m. for a knowledge session. I'm Tariq Al-Barwani, along with our studio genius, DJ Safia, wishing you all a happy week. Ma'as salama.